Hello and welcome everyone to the next iteration of the Paddock podcast as we hit the ground running here in Spain. There's actually a lot of information to go over, and we luckily were able to get some time in with Will Buxton and Ted Kravitz on some of the recently announced changes for the remainder of the F2 season. Would you gentlemen care to share with us what has come to light from the FIA?
Well, to be frank, after the events of the first three races of the F2 season, majority of the teams have expressed countless amounts of concern about how the FIA has F2 running their weekend formats. F2 is usually a 45-minute practice session, followed by short qualifying, then a sprint race, and a feature race on the following day. The teams have expressed that the number of available tyre compounds allotted for the race weekend isn't enough, as we saw plenty of examples, mainly Johnson from Virtuosi, with how his tyres were basically done for and how he couldn't even get off the starting line last race weekend in Imola. After a few team meetings as well, with sitting down with the FIA, they have decided to have the remainder of the season be ran without the sprint race between qualifying and the feature race.
And Will, moving over to you for this next part, how will this be affecting the teams here on out for the rest of the season?
If you look at it as a whole, it's really going to alleviate pressure from most, if not all, the teams. I'm sure that there will be plenty more engine failures and issues causing drivers to DNF, but they will be less likely to be caused by long use of tyres throughout the racing weekend. So if you noticed, majority of the teams were making 2 stops throughout the feature race instead of 1 to get that last little bit of life out of the tyres. They ran to the ground during the sprint race the day before. I do also believe with this change for the rest of the season, we will see an overall increase in performance from all of the drivers, not just from those who had DNF so far this season. In the end, that will make for an interesting season, as there still is a lot of ground for the grid to make up for both driver and constructor standings.
That is some important info to hold on to for the rest of this weekend. As we head into F2 qualifying, I wanted to thank you both for taking time out of your busy weekend to hop on the show, and we hope to have you guys on again later in the season. That was Ted Kravitz and Will Buxton, and it's time for qualifying.
So qualifying is complete and we're all set for an exciting race tomorrow. Your top 3 are Johnson, Lawson and Marino Sato. With qualifying complete, all that remains is the main event. We'll be live and uninterrupted for the feature race tomorrow, so make sure you join us then. Hello and welcome to the Circuit of Barcelona, Catalunya. We're counting down to the start of today's race, and you can feel the excitement in the air. This promises to be a real spectacle. It's back to the future for the F2 drivers today. We welcome the removal of the chicane in the final sector. It will shorten lap times and reduce the length to 2.9 miles, 14 turns. This was the original setup of the track, but it hasn't been used since 2007. We're almost ready to go then, and this is what the starting grid looks like for today's race. Johnson lines up on pole position, and it's Liam Lawson alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Sato, Dragovic, Yuri Vips, Awasa, Vesti, Hauger, for sure, Marcus Armstrong, Calderon, Novalak, Teo Porcher, Ollie Caldwell, and Deruvala, Sargent, Williams, Jake Hughes, Fittipaldi, Nissani, Boschong, and Amory Cordial completes the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's get down to the track. Alongside me today, I'm delighted to welcome back to the commentary box the 2012 GP2 champion, Davide Valsecchi. There looks to be a challenging race ahead of the drivers today, Davide. With that in mind, what are you looking out for today?
Well, Alex, I want to see how the drivers at the back of the grid are going to roll up. They'll need to make an impact in the early stages, and they're probably hoping for a bit of luck at the start. We may see some bold maneuvers out there today.
The formation lap gets underway for this, the Formula 2 race, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure the car is ready for battle once the lights go out. We are almost ready to start the Formula 2 race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Alright, so our possible race strategies there. We're going to be doing the single run, or a single stop from softs to hards, and feeling pretty confident after qualifying. The one and only run that we did, knowing that we have a better opportunity in Spain. I do like this track, and it works really well for me, as Liam Lawson is going to be starting P2, and a little bit longer waiting time for the start of this race as we're waiting for that final car right in front of us to get to their grid slot. And yes, so Lawson next to me and our teammate Sato behind us in P3. Off to an okay start. He's going to be side by side with us, but 2 tenths gap off this main straight. And I know better than to try to dive bomb into the inside corner, so we stayed outside as best as possible and wait for him. Wait for Lawson to see what he does, but he's going to be falling back about 6 tenths or so already. As we have a good racing line going out wide a little bit more than I wanted to. Going up the hill, still trying to get used to driving the F2 car. About 7 tenths or so coming through here. And yeah, so the setups that I'm grabbing are off of Steam. And I'm feeling pretty comfortable there as Lawson and Sato file in, as well as everybody else. Awasa back there and the other Red Bull style Carlin, I believe that is. But yeah, so coming back to this Sector 2 PRS straight, Sector 3. Lawson trying to make a move there, not quite, we're holding him off. Is taking the racing line as best as we can, coming up through Sector 3, through this long uphill curve, and then the right-hander downhill had to let off the gas a little bit here, try not to go out of the track limits, and P1 all the way through lap 1, so we still have a long race ahead of us to try and finish in first place or on the podium. But it's going to be Lawson behind us and Sato for a few laps. Moving on to the end of lap 4 is where DRS and Lawson's going to have his first opportunity to try and pass. You can see the train of cars behind me with DRS. And you can't quite see Lawson on the inside, but this is the best opportunity we have to see him. You can see him on the inside corner. We give him plenty of room. And I'm not really a fan of this angle. A mirror, you can't really see him. You can just see him over the tire there as we slot in behind Lawson. And we're going to be losing some pace on Lawson here. Already 2 tenths back. Sato is about 8 tenths back or so behind us in P3, holding off Drugovic in P4. As we're only a few laps away from our first pit stop. So that's already a half a second or more, 7 tenths or so coming out of that corner. So a lot of work for us to do here. Lap 6, and we're already 2.5 seconds behind Lawson coming through Sector 2 here. And we make the move to let Sato ahead of us because he has more pace than we do pretty much. So that's going to be a team move. We're there. Sato P2, myself P3, Lawson P1.
Thank you for giving Sato the position. He has the better pace at the moment, and we need him to chase down Lawson.
Yeah, I know, I guess qualifying was better, but we still got a race to finish. Oh, lap 9 now, we're getting ready to come in. You can already see 1.1 seconds between myself and Sato. Lawson already ahead. 4.3 seconds just by a few laps. He is in that car just running at amazing pace here as we're coming in for our first pit stop. And there's going to be a handful of us coming in. I believe that's Drugovich behind, and just so many other cars coming in. Majority of the cars coming in for this pit stop. As you can see, about half of the grid or so, the rubber coming off of our tires, as well as everybody else. You can see all the marbling and stuff on the other tires. But decent stop for us for our pit. But that was a late release for myself. Still trying to get used to the manual pit stops. So yeah, so Drugovich actually dropping a position coming out of the pits, and you can see as I believe that's Hauger coming out, and the cars are ghosting. So start of lap 10 and P12. So we're hoping for a good run this lap, trying to get our tires warm enough, but that's not going to really help us out. We had some trouble throughout this lap, as you can see there. Still in P12, holding on Vesti, and people coming out of the pits. Good, a little track limit warning there as we're coming out of the final corner. And it's only going to be a few positions gained up into P11. And that's easily P10 because I believe Williams was coming out of the pits. And we're right up in the gearbox of our American counterpart. Logan Sargent, as far as I know, is the only other American on the F2 grid in F1 in 2022. So trying to make a move on Sargent as of right now in the car ahead. As we're kind of side by side with Vesti, trying to make a move here. But yeah, so lap 14 coming down the main straight. Still holding on to P10, 1.7 seconds between myself and Sargent in P9. So, basically having to deal with tire life on these hards as of right now compared to trying to run pace. But Lawson is ahead, and Sato P2, Vips, Yuri Vips in P3, and Ayuma Awasa in P4. As we're still trying to close in on Vesti. Vesti now 3.5 second gap between Vesti and Sargent. As we're back in P11. We lost that position a few laps ago, but it's not really too much of an issue. You can see Williams and Beauchamp, DNF. Williams was driving with us a few laps ago, but those two drivers do have the engine failure. So we're coming around the end of Sector 1, start of Sector 2, P11 right now for us, as we're going to be rounding out the last few corners behind Vesti, I believe it was, for a decent finish and some good pace for the rest of the season to start out.
A great win then for the Carlin team today. And I have to wonder, Davide Valsecchi, just what set them apart from the competition here.
The difference was in the strategy. Credit to the driver for sure, but races like this really drive home how much of a team sport this is. They did a lot of work on the pit wall to really make the most of each stint and to make the best use of these tires. But that said, all of that would have been for nothing without a talented hand on the wheel.
As we can see, it's time for the podium, and I can see the Carlin team underneath our commentary box going crazy as their driver walks out. It was a great win, and it means a great deal to this team. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Liam Lawson extends his lead at the top, getting ever closer to securing the championship. And so, driver of the day then, Davide Valsecchi, who do you think you'd go for?
I have to give it to Liam Lawson. One of the best things about Formula 2 is watching these young drivers grow and mature, and it feels like his career took a big step forward today.
And now a look at the team standings. Carlin have extended their lead at the top of the standings. Another team that will be satisfied with this race is Charus, whose good result moves them further up in the championship. There will be plenty more twists and turns to come this season. I hope you'll join us at the next race when Formula 2 returns.